Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about everything bariatric surgery from my point of view 7 months post-op. So I've been wanting to do this video for quite some time now, but honestly, it's just been a bit daunting to think about like everything I want to cover. There's so much information when it comes to bariatric surgery. And so really all I want to do is just share my experience, the program I went through, some of the best parts, some of the most challenging parts. And I know when I was looking into surgery, I was looking at a bunch of different videos and people's experiences. And so I just want to share mine today. So when I decided to get bariatric surgery, I actually was going to get it here locally where I live in Oregon. And so I filled out all of my new patient paperwork for a specific clinic here, and the wait time was pretty significant. I started filling out the information, I want to say like January of 2022. And they weren't going to get me in to even start the program until summer. So, and with each program, there's different requirements. And so this program required a couple different things where I probably wasn't going to get bariatric surgery until the end of the year, if I was lucky, just based on how the timeline was. So I was super bummed and discouraged that it wasn't as quick as I was hoping. I didn't think I was going to get in like next month or, February or whatever, but I was hoping that I could at least get the ball rolling, and that just wasn't an option here locally. So I was super upset. I talked with my mother-in-law who had also gotten the surgery, and I told her like, I'm just so bummed. Like I did all of this research. I finally made my decision to get the surgery done, and now they're not even going to let me start the program until summer. And she told me about a clinic called Blossom Bariatrics, which is a clinic in Las Vegas who specializes in bariatric surgery. And she said, I've heard really good things about them. Look them up and see what you think. And so at first I was a bit hesitant. First of all, the surgery would be done in Las Vegas, and I've never had, up to that point, I had never had major surgery before. So the thought of going somewhere else to get surgery done was a bit scary. The other thing that seemed kind of like too good to be true is that they actually accepted my insurance, which I have good commercial insurance, but with bariatric surgery, it's not covered under my insurance. And so I was expecting that I would have to pay out of pocket quite a bit. And I was really surprised to find out that some type of magic that they do, I don't exactly know how they do it, but with this program, it covered a majority of the surgery. So I was super stoked about that. So I did research beforehand. I saw that I was a candidate. They only take, at least the time at this point when I was getting surgery, they only accepted more low-risk patients. And so I met all the qualifications. I ended up calling Blossom just to kind of see like, is this for real? Is this something that I could really do? And I was just really surprised. The initial person I talked with was super nice. I was really surprised at how easy they made it sound. Like, yeah, it's, you fill out this information. Yep, I see your insurance. We accept that. This is how much the price would be. And yeah, we could get you in March. And I was calling in January of that same year. So I was kind of taken aback a bit because with all of the other programs that I had looked into, it was a much more rigorous process to get the surgery. A lot of other places require like a psych evaluation or like therapy leading up to it, things like that. So I was expecting at least a 6-month process at the minimum before actually getting the surgery. And I was just really surprised that they could get me in so quickly. To back up a little bit to give more context also, I don't know that getting it done as quickly as I did is always the best choice for everybody. For me, this had been years in the making of I had already been working on learning more about nutrition and implementing proper nutrition into my life. I had worked on a lot of the emotional and mental issues that came with some of the issues I had with food and related to it. And so I was at a really good point where I was already established with a therapist. I had a lot of those mental and emotional resources available for me, to where I knew that I was at a place where I wanted to get the surgery done. I felt confident that that was the right timing to do it for me. But that's not the case for everybody. I think if I had wanted to do the surgery like a year ago, finding a program that that would have taken a bit longer would have been more beneficial, but I had already done a lot of the pre-work leading up to it. So my whole purpose with getting bariatric surgery was maybe a little bit different than others. Because I had put in a lot of work on the front end of learning about nutrition, implementing healthy practices in different ways, I just was very disappointed and frustrated that my physical body wasn't matching up with all the work I was doing. And after learning more about bariatric surgery and what it does, a lot of people think of it as like, oh, it's just a surgery you get done to lose weight. And there's so much more behind it. And that's really what confirmed the decision to get it for me. What I was really looking to do was to have my metabolism reset so I could have a fresh start, to actually have the good decisions I was making be reflected in how my body responded to it. So I'm not an expert, I'm not a physician or a clinical person, but what I was most interested in was that metabolic reset for my body. I had a lot of symptoms that are associated with metabolic dysfunction. I had thyroid issues, I had polycystic ovarian syndrome, rapid weight gain, acne, things that are kind of associated or can be tied to metabolic dysfunction. And so I had tried other methods to heal without surgery, and I think potentially given enough time, those other methods would have helped. But the thing about the surgery that was so appealing was that this was a way to totally reset my metabolism in a quick amount of time, so that way I could continue building healthy habits that supported my life. Going into the surgery, that was really my mindset. My mindset wasn't to lose a bunch of weight or to have aesthetic outcomes from it. Like, honestly, it really wasn't about that. It was really about just having a metabolism that was well functioning. So going into it, I wasn't really looking for, I didn't really have like a goal weight in mind. I was really looking at it more from like a symptomatic reference, I suppose, where it's like I was having certain symptoms and I wanted those symptoms to be different. I knew that losing weight would benefit my joints and certain aches and pains that I had been having, but that wasn't like the primary focus. I just saw it as more of a symptom that my body was safe enough to let go of that excess weight that it had been storing for so long. I felt ready, and I talked with my husband and we decided, okay, it's January now, we're gonna do this surgery in March. And I was so grateful that there was just this opportunity where I didn't have to fly outside of the US. I could go somewhere within the US. It was reasonable. They took my insurance. And honestly, I was just really impressed with the people that worked at Blossom. This video isn't sponsored by them or anything like that. This is just my honest review on that whole journey. So leading up to the surgery, there was a lot of information that the program had sent over to me to review, and I just devoured it. It was like I was just so ready to do it. I wanted to make sure I was as prepared as I could be. The pre-op diet is usually 2 weeks prior to your actual surgery date, and again, every program is different. How my program was structured is you had 2 protein shakes and then a lean and green meal for dinner. So it could be like steak and green beans or stuff like that. And it was a kind of it was specific on how much of each of those things to have. So the first week of that was really difficult, more so just because my body was used to consuming enough calories and food to support itself. And so when you do a major deficit like that, at least for my body, it was really hard. I had a lot of brain fog. I felt really tired. It was rough. Like I'm not gonna lie about that. That part was pretty hard. But I kind of had the excitement of what I knew it was for, and so that kind of helped a little bit. But I did really good on the pre-op diet. I stuck to it pretty exact. Then it came time for me and my husband to fly to Las Vegas for the surgery, and I believe we got there like 2 days before the surgery because they do some, or maybe it was 3 days before, they do some pre-op stuff leading up to it. So with my program, I was able to go, it's really cool how they have it set up. Like, we flew into the airport, a driver was there to pick us up, and this is included all in the package. So all of the transportation, all of the hotel, that's all included kind of in this setup. So they picked us up from the airport, took us to the hotel. The hotel was super nice because they're like a partner with the clinic. They have like protein drinks there. The people who work there are familiar that a lot of the people from the program are staying there, and so there's like a little bag that they give you at the hotel. It was great. So the next day it was more like stress test, meeting with the dietitian, doing kind of consultative things like that. So that was really good, easy. It was nice to be in the clinic. It just had a really good and positive vibe about it. Very non-judgmental. It's cool because a lot of the staff that's there, a lot of them have been patients themselves. So that was kind of cool with the person who did my intake. She, I think, was like 6 or 7 months post-op herself. So it was kind of nice just talking to another person who's working there and has been through the journey that I'm about to go on. And so I thought that was really cool as well. So that was day 1. And then day 2 was focused more on getting my upper endoscopy done. So that's where they go in and they look at my stomach, look to see, make sure everything looks good to perform surgery, look and see if there's any hernias that need to be prepared or need to be repaired. And that was super easy as well. It was kind of almost like a test run to the surgery because you get put under for the endoscopy. It's not general anesthetic, but it's propofol, which is like, I got knocked out completely. Like, I don't remember a thing, but people have different experiences with that. But it was kind of a nice practice run. I went to the surgical center, which is just right across the street, or maybe I think it's like 2 minutes away from the other clinic. And I was able to get prepped, and it went super easy. So it was kind of nice just to see, okay, this is kind of similar to how it'll be on my actual surgery day. So day 3 was surgery day. I had the vertical sleeve gastrectomy. So there's two main surgeries that people will usually choose between when it comes to bariatric surgery. You have the gastric bypass and then the gastric sleeve. The reason I chose the gastric sleeve for myself is there's kind of pros and cons to both. It just depends on kind of what your outcomes are. So my reasoning behind it is with the gastric bypass, the positive aspects are that's the surgery that's been around the longest. So there's a lot more data on it and data on the outcomes. The other positive is that it does have a higher success rate, meaning that it's more likely that you'll maintain your weight loss with the gastric bypass compared to the gastric sleeve. And then the cons to it are you do have a greater chance of malnutrition, like not being able to absorb as many nutrients. And so that's ultimately why I chose the gastric sleeve. The pros of that are it's, I don't want to say less invasive, but there's less mechanics involved in it in the way that they just cut out vertically part of your stomach. And there's no need for intestinal rerouting like there is with the bypass. And then the other thing with this sleeve is that you do have a higher chance of stretching your stomach out more than you do with the gastric bypass. So that's kind of a pro or con depending on how you look at it. For me, my whole drive and purpose, like I mentioned before, was to have better metabolic function. And I didn't mention this before, but I've mentioned it in my other videos, also to eventually carry a baby and support that baby with breastfeeding. And so I really liked the idea of with the gastric sleeve that I'd be able to work my calories up again more so than and a bit quicker than the gastric bypass. And so I just, that fit more in kind of like what my desires and needs were. And so that's why I ultimately chose the gastric sleeve. So day 3 was surgery day. Husband and I showed up early in the morning, got prepped for that. They give you these really cool sweats to wear that are really comfortable. And surgery itself went really well. I don't remember anything, like they knocked me out really good, which is what I wanted. I remember waking up and just being like, okay, it's over now. And I was really nauseous. Just that's how it was for me. So when I woke up, I started kind of like dry heaving, and that was pretty uncomfortable. And, you know, they were trying to not have me do that because we didn't want to like bust any of the staples or anything in my stomach. So that was probably the hardest part with waking up, where I just felt really nauseous and like I kept dry heaving, but I was trying not to because I knew it wasn't good to do that. But I don't know how long I was out for before they had me stand up and walk around. So they had me walk around like before they could approve me to go back to the hotel. I had to like walk a distance. So walking and everything, I felt fine. I did feel a bit like sore in my stomach, like, which makes sense, but the pain wasn't super bad for me at that point. That I remember is mainly just the nausea, and I was so focused on trying not to dry heave to keep my stomach intact. But yeah, so I walked around a bit, and that went really well. So then we got sent home, or to the hotel, home for that time. And I pretty much just went to sleep after that. My husband did such a good job of managing like the medication that I was needing to take, and we had to like document all of that to make sure it was done properly. I could drink a little bit of liquid. They had these little like shot glasses that they gave us so we could measure how much I could have every so often. And so I did sugar-free Gatorade, and that just sat really well. I remember watching other people's stories, and they talked about how sometimes like water just felt really thick. And I don't know why, but that's how it was for me too. Like having the sugar-free Gatorade, it just went down a lot smoother. So that's what I had a lot of. And then the other thing that was kind of tough is they give you compressions to just help prevent blood clots. So those were kind of annoying, but understood why we needed them. The first 24 hours was probably the toughest after, because I had to get up and walk. I think it was every hour, if I'm remembering right. So that was just tough, you know, to be sleeping and then have to get up every hour to walk around. But it was good to help with circulation. I believe it was that night too that they had nurses that came around and did rounding just to check, and they also gave me IV fluid during that time, which was super helpful. And yeah, so overall, that probably the first 24 hours was the toughest. Again, just mainly getting up and moving around and trying to drink what I could without it, like, you know, hurting too much and all of that fun stuff. So then the next day, I believe, is when I went to get my IV fluids from the clinic, which is really nice that they do that, because you can't really drink too much, post-op, like freshly post-op, just because your stomach isn't quite big enough. And so that was really helpful. That gave me a bit more energy. And again, up to this point, I was doing pretty good. I know a lot of people talk about having depression and kind of like mourning the loss of food. And at this point, I didn't really care about that. It wasn't, food honestly didn't really sound too good to me. Like I think my stomach was just kind of healing. And so all of my body cues were kind of off. I couldn't tell if I was hungry or thirsty or what. Like I was trying to just figure it out because a major thing had kind of disrupted, my whole system. So I didn't really experience that quite yet. We ended up flying back home. I think we ended up staying 2 extra days just because of like how the flight schedule worked. And flight was totally good. I just made sure I was drinking enough fluid as I could. Had the air or the compression stockings on, which was helpful. I would say that the 2 weeks post-op were more difficult for me than the 2 weeks pre-op. And I think a lot of that is because I wasn't as distracted as I was with my pre-op, because I had taken time off work, which I'm so glad I did, just to recover. I was resting a lot. It was definitely needed. But I just didn't have as much to like occupy my mind with. And so I definitely had a period of missing food. Like I felt hungry. And I know there's a difference between what they call like head hunger and like actual hunger. I really do feel like, looking back, that I was experiencing actual hunger. It did not feel like head hunger, but I think because my metabolism was in kind of a different spot than maybe other patients, I just experienced that a bit differently. And so the first 2 weeks post-op is all clear liquids, and I just could not do like super sweet stuff or like super sweet tasting stuff. So like all of like the protein shakes and stuff like that, I just like, even the thought of it now, like, it makes me want to gag. Like I just, it was not appetizing, and I just couldn't keep it down. So it was really hard for me to hit my protein goals in those first 2 weeks, because protein shakes and things like that just didn't sound good. And so I did a lot of like bone broths and like liquid soups and things like that. That was helpful to have. But during that time, that was probably the toughest part of my journey, was just like I was watching like cooking shows every day. Like that was the other part too that I wasn't anticipating, but like I really enjoy cooking, and that was even hard, like, because I didn't want to have to cook and then not eat. Like that felt kind of mean to myself to do. So in those 2 weeks, I didn't really cook much at all. And so I think that was kind of more of what I was grieving, is yes, the food, but it was more of just like the cooking and the enjoyment I got from that. After 2 weeks, I could incorporate like soft foods, and I think with my program, again, I know it was only like 7 months ago, but it seems like it was such a long time ago now. But it was like soft foods and like smaller portions of hard foods, or like normal foods, chicken, things like that. No sugar, no carbs is what they recommend for the first 6 months. I would say that for the first 3 months, I stuck to that pretty religiously. I wasn't doing any carbs besides like carbs that you find in like veggies and things like that. And then I got to a point where my body was just not doing well with that. And so again, this is not what my program recommended, but it was a really tough decision for me to make, to go, okay, am I going to lean into this more intuitively, or am I going to focus on doing my program's guidelines, but then feeling like crap, essentially? And it was really, really tough. And so what I just started doing is I leaned into things a bit more intuitively. And again, I'm not recommending to go against your program guidelines. This is just where my body and what it was telling me it needed, I just really felt like I needed to listen to that. And so that's what I did. So after 3 months, I started incorporating carbs back in. And I just did it slowly. I would do it and then kind of see how my body responded to it. And I haven't had any issues with any foods. In the beginning, beans were a little bit hard, where they would kind of upset my stomach a little bit, and now I can eat beans and it's totally fine. But I have not had any issues where I've felt, where I've had to throw up or where I've gotten really sick from foods. There's been times where I've eaten a little too much, never to the point of like being in pain, but where it's like, ooh, that was a bit too much. Like I feel a bit uncomfortable. That's happened maybe about 2 times. And that's okay. Like I know that I was expecting to kind of have those times where it's like, oh, yep, that didn't sit well, or I ate a little too much. And in those times, I just really have not shamed myself or made myself feel bad about it. It's just been like, oh, okay, that was a good lesson learned. But yeah, so I think for me, that was probably the other hardest part, was making that decision of, am I going to listen intuitively to what my body's telling me what it needs? Or am I going to focus and be very strict with my program guidelines? And I think what ultimately helped me with that decision was my reason for getting surgery done in the first place. And it wasn't to lose a bunch of weight. It wasn't to be skinny. Like that wasn't ever my intention. And really, I had been trying to get out of that dieting mindset for such a long time that I didn't want this to just be another diet. I didn't want this surgery to be the source of like shame that I had experienced my whole life. I really was looking at this surgery as an opportunity to love on my body. And that's really what it's been. And so making the decision to focus on my body more intuitively and really tune into what it needs was the right decision for me. What gets me emotional about it is I'm just really proud of myself. I'm really proud that something that could have been another diet or another opportunity to kind of like shame my body or shame myself has actually proved to be one of the greatest gifts. It's been such an awesome tool to give me food freedom to really test or practice listening to my body and leaning into what it needs. And I'm just really proud of that. And I think it just goes to show too, just how important the mental and emotional and spiritual work is that comes with this. And it's funny because right after my surgery, I would say probably for the first 2 to 3 months, I had a lot of anxiety and just like tough emotions that I had to kind of sit in. And I think in a lot of ways, this surgery was just the catalyst to a lot of growth that was ahead. And so I say this jokingly, but there's truth in it that, you know, I've lost a big portion of my stomach, but I've gained so much more. Since December of 2021, I'm down almost 90 pounds, which is just incredible. Like I think part of why I didn't give myself a weight goal, like or a goal weight, was definitely because I didn't want to get kind of into that diet culture mindset of that wasn't as important of a factor as other things. But I think part of it too was that I honestly didn't think I could do it. And so
even just saying that now, like, wow, I've lost about 90 pounds. That's incredible. And I'm still kind of in shock over it that I did it. And I think that's been one of the cool lessons that I've learned in all of this too, is that like, I am worthy, I am capable, and I can do it. So since surgery, I feel like things feel pretty normal now. I try to eat, I usually have like breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then 2 or 3 snacks in between, and that seems to do really well for my body. I'm slowly increasing my intake of food, which is really exciting to me because that just means that nutritionally I'm getting more benefits. So I'm excited to see kind of what the next 6 months look like, and kind of where I can get with that. I've been doing some exercise. Again, I'm just doing it more intuitively. When it feels good, I do it. When I feel like it's just not feeling right, then I don't. And so that's kind of one of the other goals I have kind of on the horizon, where I would love to build more muscle, kind of tone up, get more strength. I'm really excited about that, actually. So I think the hardest parts for me in this journey have been the mental, emotional, and spiritual part of it, of not having the distraction of trying to get healthy, trying to lose weight, trying to eat better. That's consumed my brain and my thoughts for so long. And to have that removed, it just opened up more capacity to work on, past childhood traumas, just issues and conflicts within myself. And so that has definitely been one of the hardest parts, but also like one of the best parts. It's opened up things that I don't think I would have chosen to focus on if I didn't have this big life-changing surgery. And yeah, just kind of learning body cues and learning what worked for me and what didn't work for me, learning to rely on my body to tell me what it needs. Again, that's been kind of a challenge learning that, but also one of the best parts. And I just feel like it's prepared me so much more for when I do become a mom. I feel like I'll just be able to lean into that intuition so much more of what my body needs, what my baby needs, and that's part of, I'm so excited for that. And so with where things are right now, my surgeon recommended that we wait at least a full year after surgery before we start trying for kiddos again. And so that's kind of the plan right now, where I still have another 5 months to go before my 1-year anniversary. And yeah, I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that I did this. I know this is such a big decision to make for yourself, and ultimately you have to do what you feel like is best. Like, that's really what this journey has taught me so far, is my body knows what it needs, and I just have to kind of lean into it. So that's what I'm still working on and learning how to do it. So yeah, doing this YouTube channel has been one of those big goals that I didn't think that I was ever capable of doing. And something about my surgery just launched me into this, and I'm so grateful just for the support, and that I have this outlet to share, that hopefully it helps at least just one person kind of make the decision for themselves in whatever area of life there is. So it's something I'm wanting to do more of. I have a lot of dreams for content creation, and one of the ways that you can support me in that is by liking this video, subscribing, and sharing this with somebody who might find it valuable. So if you're able to do that, it's really appreciated. And I'm just so excited to see where I go from here. So thanks for tagging along and being part of the journey, and my heart is just so full of gratitude. So that's what I'll leave this video with, is just gratitude and just a big thank you.